Hey, so we're going to cook. What are we going to cook? We've been to Harlem. God, what a story. What can't you cook? I mean, I grew up in restaurants working, so I'm sort of like, you know, working with the brothers, and that was how it was back in Philly in the day. It was Italians and blacks working in the kitchens. So I sort of have a certain affinity for this cooking. I love it. I'm going to make greens my way. It's like a riff on the greens that we saw at Spoon Bread and at Auntie Ruth's. Not the same. I never figured out this all-day cooking thing. To be honest, I've never done it that way. It's great, but it's not how I do it. And cooking is sort of like riffs. I read a good article about that one day. You sort of have, it's like jazz, you know, you have the notes and then you do it your own way. So here's my riff on greens. First, I'm going to slice the stems, because you know, the stems tend to take a while to cook. And I got a pot of boiling water behind me, boiling salted water. We're going to blanch these greens. I'm going to put the stems in first. So hold that thought. I'll be back in a second. I'm going to dump these in the boiling water, and you'll see the rest of it. Stems are in the water. Now, I'm going to get the greens, and I'm going to slice them, because sooner or later I've got to do this anyway. You can't eat them this big on the plate, because it's sloppy. So I'm going to chop them a little bit here, about like this. Now remember, these things, I mean, this is rough stuff. I mean, you couldn't eat this as a salad. It's probably why it's cooked all day, you know, in a Southern tradition. But I do it a different way, and that is I blanch them for probably, you know, boiling, a good hard boiling salted pot of water. And I'm probably going to blanch these for close to 5 minutes, which is a long time. So in go the greens. We want to get them all submerged, and I'll tell you what, don't be timid. These things are going to take a while to cook. Notice I keep my fingers back, so I still have 5 on each hand. We're not going to go crazy. And I'm going to add all this stuff together, because this, again, is not going to be super fancy. So we got the onion. We're going to do the carrot. It's a happy pot of greens. So they're boiling. We're going to stir them probably another couple of minutes, because these things do need to be cooked. And I'm going to include in this some red bell pepper and green pepper as well. All right, a little hot pepper here. I love hot peppers. Cannot resist any excuse I get to sneak a hot pepper into my food. I do it. And as you see, I'm including the seeds, so we're going for some burn here, folks. All right, flame off. This way we don't burn ourselves. Because if you remove the pot, the flame's still there. Into the sink she goes. You can use bacon fat, smoked turkey fat, something with a smoky flavor. A lot of times I'll do this with bacon fat because I love the smoke flavor. While you're cooking, you can add diced smoked ham hock, smoked turkey if you don't want to have a pork product in there. I'm not going to do that today. It's kind of a different riff, you know. This is like improvisational, cooking improvisational. Every time you do it, it's a little different. So, me, today, olive oil. Because big flavor, and olive oil is going to work. Now I have my mirepoix here, right? This pan on. Yeah, all right. Oh yeah, it's hot. Oh, I smell it. All right. See, there's that sound. That's the happy sound of stuff hitting a hot pan. And we're going to stir that around. So what do we have? Carrots, celery, onion, red pepper, green pepper, and a hot pepper. So far, so good. To this, we are going to let it cook, and then we're going to add some more stuff, including the greens back again, a little bit of chicken stock, salt, pepper, and cumin. Why cumin? I don't know. I just started putting cumin in today. Cumin tastes good. I like cumin. All right, we're going to leave that alone and come back to it in a few minutes while I get ready for our next act, the braised short ribs. All right, there's the salt, a little pepper. Okay, container. In a minute, we're going to bring them over to the stove. Ta-da! Ah, see? Steamrolled everything back in. We haven't lost anything. These vegetables are beginning to get soft, which I like. They've sweated out a bit. This is a good thing. To this, I am going to add a little bit of rice, because I just thought I'd throw that in as a surprise. I love to put rice and beans and all this stuff together. This really is a dish. I mean, this could constitute a meal. I'm going to put a little rice in here. Behind this, I happen to have a pot of chicken stock going, which I actually have pots of chicken stock and beef stock going all the time in my house. I'm going to ladle a little bit of that in here. This will be absorbed by the rice. It'll also help the sort of moist cooking that we're doing. And I'm going to put the greens in. And I'm going to stir it all up, and I'm going to put a lid back on it again. And I'm going to add some salt and pepper. Food doesn't taste like anything if you don't have salt in it. A little salt, a little more olive oil. Yes. This is how we're doing it. Now we're going to stir this up a little. Like this. And I like the way it looks already. All right. Oil. Hot pan. This is a little bit of pepper in this oil, excuse me. I do that. Sometimes I keep oils around with seasoning in them. All right. Hey, what's in that pan? And see that happy sound of... This looks like olive oil again, by the way. So in the meantime, check our greens. Oh, yeah. Okay. Guess what? I put cumin in here because I can smell it. So remember, I put a pinch in. How much cumin? A pinch. For these short ribs today, I'm going to use beef stock, and we're going to add a little bit of tomato paste. Tomato paste beef stock, sort of an old sauce called Espanol. I don't know. Notched it up to like culinary trivia. We're going to have tomato paste in here. We're also going to have something unusual, which is pickling spices. The chef up at Spoonbread told me he uses pickling spices for that. Now that's odd. Pickling spices are clove, allspice, I think nutmeg, bay leaf, black peppers. So kind of an odd thing to have in here. So we're going to do it that way. I'm going to try it. It sounded good, and theirs tasted great. So, hey, I'm always learning. There we go. All right. Say another 5 minutes and they're going to be ready. These guys are pretty well seared here. We're going to pull them out, and I'm going to leave the fat in here because, you know, I don't see any funny colors happening. Looks to me like it's very usable. I'm going to end up making a little roux here too, and I like the idea. Rather than taking this fat out and substituting one, let's just use the one that's in there. A little bit of mirepoix, again, you know what that is. The only thing different in here is I've got garlic in here. I'm going to add a little tomato paste, which sort of gives us that Espanol sauce element. And that's what the chef up there told me he did, so hey, I believe him. And his ribs were great, so why not try this? I'm going to dissolve the paste just so it's incorporated, spread throughout. So we're going to add a little flour, not too much. I don't want to make wallpaper paste if I can help it. And I'm going to saute out the flour because we know we're talking about this before. I'm going to cook the flour a little bit to get rid of that raw flour flavor that sometimes can happen if you don't cook the flour. Now, when do I want to add the pickling spices? I'm going to put a bay leaf in. I don't need two because I think that's an overwhelming flavor. And this is a little bit of this pickling spice because, again, this is what that guy told me he did, and I believe him. Now I'm going to add some beef stock, and I want to add it quickly because with the roux in here, it's going to thicken up right away. And if you want to know how to avoid lumpy gravy, this is one way to avoid it, is get your liquid in there fast and get it stirred and incorporated. Whoops, I made a mess. How'd that happen? Get it incorporated fast so that it's evenly spread, because the lumps are a result of not mixing it properly in the beginning, not thoroughly mixing it in the beginning, and the flour starts to tighten up on its own in individual clumps. You don't want that to happen. Now you see we've returned this beef stock to a good boil. But we know we're not going to boil things when we braise them, right? No, you just bring the stock to a boil. We're bringing it to a boil because you have to put, you want to get it hot when you put the meat back in because it's going to lose a lot of temperature now. And I know I'm going to layer and load this pan more than I normally do because I'm gonna, all right? All right, we're going to get a lid on here and we're going to go into a 350-degree oven, and we're going to check on this every so often because you never know. Now, I use canned beans to add to this collards rather than cooked beans. It takes a long time to cook beans. I mean, you could soak beans overnight, cook them separately, and add them. I'm using, canned beans don't bother me. So I'm going to use some nice white big cannellonis just because I think they're going to look good. Color-wise, they're going to look good. I know they're going to taste good. And man, oh man, I mean, this is really beginning to look like a dish here. So we've got the chicken stock happening. We've got the mirepoix, the collards, the rice. This is a complete meal. This is a complete meal for anybody except those among us that eat it as a side dish. And I'd say we're probably getting near done. Those beans, because they're canned, do not have to be cooked much. They're cooked already. All right, what I have here assembled is the mise en place for the cornbread. It's all ready to go. Dry ingredients, wet ingredients, fat. What I'm going to do is put together all of the dry ingredients. I have here cornmeal. This is my little sifter. Excuse the way it looks, but you know what? It's a well-used utensil. I bake all the time. That's cornmeal. I'm using pastry flour here because I don't want gluten. Pastry flour is, I think, 10% or something like that, cornstarch. It's less glutinous flour. For cakes, you don't want gluten. For bread, you want gluten. This is a cake-like cornbread, and I think most cornbreads are. Well, it's not chewy. It's not like a sourdough or a pizza dough that's worked. In fact, you don't want to work it at all, which is kind of why it's like a muffin method or a cake method. This is actually called the muffin method. That was my pastry flour. I'm adding also some baking powder. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to show everybody a little tip. When you're measuring baking powder, how to really measure it. I've got 1.5 teaspoons in here. And how I measured that is this. It's not, oh yeah, that's 1 teaspoon. No, that's not 1 teaspoon. How I measure it is like this. Get it in there and then whoosh, level. That's 1 teaspoon. That would have gone in. I've done that already, but that's how you measure this because it's important with baking. I have to say, baking and cooking tend to be two sort of separate sets of skills. Baking, you have to be really exact, do everything the same way every time, pre-measure your ingredients exactly, follow the sequencing correctly, and don't deviate. Deviation, not good in baking. Hence, chefs and bakers tend to be two different types of personalities, and usually two separate guys in the kitchen, or guys and gals in the kitchen. I married a baker. She set this all up for me. Thanks. This is evaporated milk, which is also going in there. If you want the whole recipe, visit our website. All right, I have all my dry ingredients, right? I have sugar. Excuse me, I'm missing something. All right, whoops. Sugar has a couple of lumps in it. And I wonder if she put any salt in here. You know what? I don't know if she did, so I'm putting a pinch of salt, because I love salt and everything. Okay, that's all my dry ingredients. Dun, 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 dun. We're going to sift them. Wrong bowl. Whoops. See, that's why they don't let me bake. All right, ignore this guy here. I'll put him over here somewhere out of sight. I'm going to sift into the mixing bowl. See? Sifting dry ingredients. A lot of times you see this in baking. This way you have a good, equal mix of all the dry ingredients. So we're going to get the butter, flop it in here like this, break it up into little pieces. Come on, butter, little pieces. And we're going to just, watch this, we're going to rub it into the dough. I think you can make pie dough like this. Haven't I seen pie dough done like this before? You rub it in, because we don't want to work this flour mixture, because what we don't want is to develop gluten. So the butter is just crumbling into it. Now to this, I am going to add egg. Here, I've got some egg. Just going to go in the middle. Here we go. I'm going to add some corn syrup. Ooh, there it is. Come on. Come on, corn syrup. And I'm going to add a little water. And now, we're going to mix all this together here. Look, we're going to mix the wet stuff in the middle. That'll make everybody happy. We're mixing all the wet ingredients. See, now they're mixed. I was supposed to do this before. And we're just going to incorporate ever so easily the dry ingredients. Look at that. Now, is that easy or what? I mean, this is easy. Don't overwork it. I'm done. I'm done. This is done. See how that looks? Done. So I've got butter, then a little light dusting of flour. And into this, we are going to pour our cornbread. Mix. Spread it out. Hey, let me tell you something. All you bakers out there that are laughing at me, the heck with you. All right. 375-degree regular oven or a 300-degree convection oven. We happen to have a little convection switch on this oven which blows the air around. It goes faster, it makes it hotter. So anyway, 375 regular or 300 if you happen to have a convection feature in your oven. We'll check in about 20 minutes to see if it's done. The braised short ribs. Let's check our little short ribs. Oh boy, does that look good. I don't know. It's a shame you can't smell this over the TV. Kirk, does this smell good? Mm-hmm. This smells great. And I'll tell you, that pickling spice, I made a mess. I hate doing that. This pickling spice really adds an element in here. Lots of stuff happening in here. I know, that's a big portion, but hey, you know something? I'll eat it. All right. I want to put a little chopped parsley, as I always want to do, on top of the meat. And it's a big old plate of food. Well, thanks, Ms. Wells, and thanks to Cornbread and Spoon Bread, and thanks to Carl. We got a little Southern-inspired thing happening here. This dish with the collard greens, you could do it with kale. You can do it with kale and collards, works with both of those rustic greens. And this is going to be fantastic. Thanks a lot, and for the recipes, go to our webpage. Bye.
The Food Dude with Mike Mecco is made possible in part by Colavita, producers of Colavita extra virgin olive oil. Pressed from olives grown in Italy, an Italian product for the American table, Colavita, a real Italian olive oil. Every day, thousands of people go online for the first time. America Online helps them reach the world and keep in touch with those they love with access to the internet, email, and more. And by the San Francisco Convention and Visitors Bureau. Savor seafood at Fisherman's Wharf, walk across the Golden Gate Bridge, and ride a cable car through Nob Hill. The hard part is finding the time to see and taste it all in San Francisco.